everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you're all doing really well and have been having a great weekend. I am super excited to be back. I hope you all had a great summer. We took a little bit of time off the month of July, but now it is August and we are ready to get things going with the college application process with all of our students. And if you have rising seniors, you are probably at that process too. So it's been a little bit since I've been on. Again, my name is Gina and I'm with Advantage College Planning. And I like to come on Facebook Live every couple of weeks to share information related to the college application and preparation process to really try to demystify and de-stress the process for you and your family. And so today or tonight, we are going to be talking about 3 critical questions that families really need to consider before applying with an early decision plan to any colleges and universities. So that is our game plan for tonight. I am joined this evening by my colleague, Allison. Yay, welcome, Allison.
Thanks for having me, Gina. You're the best.
Yay, I'm so excited that Allison is with me. Allison and I work together when she is in our Apex office, and then she also sees clients in our Raleigh office as well. So she kind of is doing double duty. And so it's really great to have her together tonight with this time just to share information of how she's been working with her students and different things that she's recommending to her families as we're thinking about getting ready to jump into the application cycle. So if you are new here, we like to open it up for questions. So if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat. Also, if you could share where you're tuning in from, if you could let us know what year your student is. So the information that Allison and I will be talking about tonight is most directly relevant to students who are soon to be seniors because they will be applying. But if you have younger students, this is really helpful information for you to know as well. And responding in the chat also lets us know that everything is working. You can hear us, you can see us, all of the technology is doing what the technology is supposed to do. So if you can give us a comment, if you can give us a heart, a thumbs up, something to let us know everything's working, that would be great.
Twins in the class of 2026. Woo, you are busy right now.
Ooh, yeah, with twins. Okay. Leah is very busy. Great. Well, Leah, this is going to be very helpful for you. Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump in. I always like to first orient people to the process and, not assume that you necessarily know anything about the college admissions process. There's a lot of jargon, a lot of terms. And so early decision, or it's sometimes referred to as ED, gets thrown around a lot. So I wanted to get us started with just understanding what that means. So Allison, when you're talking with your students and your families, how do you explain what the application plan early decision means?
So first off, we make sure that they're aware that this is a part of the deadline decision. So this is one of the first things when you're thinking about a school, not do you want to go there, but when should you apply to go there? And if you're going to apply, how should you do so? An early decision then goes into that. How do you apply to go there? So you will select a deadline, and it's early decision, early action, or regular decision. There's multiple others, but for sake of clarity, Gina and I are just going to stay with the early decision, early action, regular decision kind of conversation. Early decision means you are in love with a particular university. You think their colors are amazing. Their mascot is like emblazoned on your wall. You've researched them. You've studied them. You cannot wait to step on campus and be a part of that student body. You would not consider going anywhere else. This is a place you dream about at night and have fantasies about. I mean, truly, your heart beats for this university. And so when we have students that come to us that have that kind of passion for one particular school, we allow the conversation to center around early decision. It means you are going to commit to this school alongside your parents as well as your counselor. And you say that I'm committed to coming to this school no matter what. You're going to sign a contract. You're going to do it early, so around the November timeframe. And then the school is going to say, great. And they will let you know sometime in early December. When you pick early decision, it means if they say yes to you, which if you really love them, you're holding on with bated breath that they are going to say yes, you are committed to coming, regardless of anything else. You're not going to wait to hear back from any other schools. You're not going to want to learn about any other financial aid offers. You are committed to going to that school, and you will pull every application that you've already put in place once you hear that decision.
Yeah. So, and that kind of gets into, the three things we're going to be really focusing on this evening is knowing that early decision is a binding application agreement. There are definitely some things that you have to consider. There are sometimes you might be applying to a school that offers two different early decision options.
Mm.
So, there are some universities that will offer early decision one, which has a deadline in November, and then your student will hear their admissions decision by mid-December. And then there might be a second option of early decision two, in which your student would submit their application by a January deadline, and they would hear a response from the college of what their admission status is by mid-February. So the benefit to early decision is that if there is truly a school that is your student's number one, then they could potentially hear back from the school and be admitted and be done with their application process before the winter holidays, right? That's great. But there, just like any other big decision, there are some big considerations when trying to decide if early decision is the right fit. So let's jump into what those three questions are that we always make sure that we talk to our students and families about, that we would recommend that you consider if this is an option. Because it's really easy to say, oh, well, the early decision, I love this school and there's a higher chance of admission, right?
Yep.
It's at a lot of these schools if I apply early decision. So that's a no-brainer. Well, the first thing we need to think about, and one of our major fit factors that we always talk to families about, is the financial fit. Do
Hmm.
the financials make sense? Really important. Allison, how do you talk with your students and families about this?
So I love, especially at Advantage College Planning. I mean, we go over with kids the social and academic fit as well as the financial fit when we talk about picking a school. So even regardless of early decision, this is a factor in how we guide students through the process. Gina and I were kind of discussing this earlier. It's a lot like if you're a female, you're going shopping for that amazing prom dress and you walk into that boutique and you decide that you love this certain gown and you don't even look at the price tag, and you get to the register and you pull out your credit card and you're like, why does that have 5 zeros after that first digit? And you realize that this dress you've now fallen in love with, you can't in fact buy and wear to prom. If it's a guy, it's like walking into a car dealership and having to say, I want the Lambo, and mom and dad say you get the Ford Escort. Like, financial sense of mind has to be at the forefront of how you do this. And so, especially with early decision, knowing that if a university says yes and you have to pull out all of your other applications, you're not waiting around to determine whether or not someone's going to give you a greater financial aid package at another university. So you need to know that this school fits you financially. Ways that we go about doing that. Let's pull up the school, go to their financial aid website, and click on their net price calculator. This is going to allow you to enter in some financial information and give this calculator an ability to spit out a number of what they believe will be your contribution to your student's educational experience. It is an estimate. It is not a hard and fast number, but it will at least tell you what they think you're going to be what you will be paying to have your student go to this school. And so then we go and see, what is the cost of attendance? That's the big number. That's everything kind of rolled into one, not just tuition, but also room and board, food, miscellaneous expenses, travel. What is the 1 year total cost for going to this university? And then you take that number of what you can afford to pay and subtract it from the cost of attendance. And then we try to determine, is there a big gap? Do you have demonstrated need that you're going to need to have met in order for you to financially afford to go to this university? And that's where the financial piece really comes into play with early decision. You need to then know, how is that university going to meet that need if you do in fact have it? Because you want to make sure that if this school says yes and your kid is super excited, that you can stroke that check at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's the really important thing, right? You don't want them falling in love
No.
with, this one university, and then they go through all of the process, they're admitted, and then you have to have that hard financial conversation. And I think another thing to keep in mind that I talk with a lot of our families about is, obviously there's some situations where it comes down to financial need and what a family
Mhm,
may or may not be able to afford. But also sometimes the conversation is about, this is something we can afford, but is this really worth the
mhm,
investment?
mhm,
Right. So either way, it needs to be something where you're doing your research ahead of time. So going to that individual university's website, clicking on that net price calculator, it's a pretty quick process to enter
mhm,
in your general tax information from the previous year is essentially what they'll be asking. And like Allison said, they'll give you an estimate of what your cost may be or what your student discount might be, right? And then you can kind of do the math there and see, okay, is this worth proceeding or not? Or do we proceed, but then kind of hope for the best, but manage our students' expectations? So the financials is definitely number one. Number two thing that we really need to talk about is this school really a fit?
mhm.
So, like Allison was saying, I know I have a lot of my students who, have that, like, I've been dreaming of this school. I have pictures of
Yeah,
me wearing the
yeah.
onesie, from when I was born. I have like the
Mhm,
holiday ornaments. My room is decked out. My email address has something to do with the mascot of this school, right? This is where I want to go, but maybe that student hasn't yet had a chance to visit the campus, not just to go for a basketball game or go walk
mhm,
around and look at kind of the art gallery or something with their parent, but actually do a visit or sit in on a class or really consider what it would be like to be a student at that school for 4 years, right? And so it can be really easy to get caught up in the emotions of it, but there are different areas of fit that we really need to consider. What are some of the things that you think about, Allison, like that students should consider? Does the school offer this? Does the school offer that? What would be some things to consider for fit?
First and foremost, you're going to school to learn. You got to make sure that your academic major is there and that they are going to teach it in such a way that you can learn well. We often talk to students, there's collaborative environments, there's independent learning environments, there's group projects, there's interaction with professors, there's the ability to reach out to your peers and have study sessions. There's other places where it's more competitive and you have to thrive under pressure. So you need to understand if the academic culture fits your personality,
Mhm.
along with, do they have the major that you want, and do they teach it in such a way that it's going to help you reach your career goals and aspirations? Because sometimes when I work with students, like, I'll give you a case in point. I have a student that was thinking they wanted to become a vet, and they specifically had an interest in equine science, and they were looking at different universities, and they would look at one where University of Kentucky, they could go and they could interact with the horses, be in the stables, and then there was Louisville, and theirs was more of learn how to own your own vet practice. And so she looked at this and went, that's not what I want to do. So if she had ED'd to a program, even though both were having her ability to be pre-vet, one was going to teach her something clearly different than the other one was. So we not only want to make sure that they will teach you so you can learn well, that they have the classes and the major that will help you reach your final destination.
Yeah, I've heard you say before, and I kind of have stolen it because I love it so much. Does the school offer the major you want to lead you in the direction you want to go?
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
that's it, because we know students will change their major. We know that they,
Mhm.
things will probably shift once they get on that college campus in terms of exactly what they're interested in, but it's like, do they have the direction that you want to be? And I've liked the way that you've thought about that.
And then, it's interesting. We also talk about when places have very distinct climates, right?
Mm.
Have you gone in the time of year where it is different than where you live? If you're going to go all the way to Madison to go to the University of Wisconsin, please make sure you've gone in January or February. If you're going to go down to the University of Baylor, please go in the month of August when you are going to sweat in places you didn't even know you could sweat. Like, you need to then go to Oregon and be there in the rainy season. Like, it impacts your ability to get out of bed and go to class. And if you've never had boots on the ground and actually visited visited those campuses in the times where it's different than where you live, because I think that's the distinction too. You can dream of, oh, I love snow. Snow in North Carolina is distinctly different than snow in Maine. Everything shuts down and we play in a half a centimeter of snow. Whereas in Maine, you're getting your tail out of bed and walking to class in your snow boots and your scarf when there's a foot of snow on the ground.
Right.
And so it helps to go in times where that makes sense. And that also then leads into, so that's your climate question, but then it's also the third one where, do you have your community on that campus? So if diversity is a big part, make sure that you see your people. If you want to have a politically leaning campus, do you see the activism that you're drawn to? If you want the big sports, do they have the sports teams? Like, are your people present on this campus, and have you interacted with them? You can't do that through a virtual tour or talking to the admissions office. You need to see it. You need to feel it. You need to experience it.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, going and visiting, we were talking when we were talking about this earlier, going and visiting during the seasons and
Mm,
also when students are on campus, because
yeah.
that will feel very different than if you've only ever gone in the summer.
Yep. I think about kids that are like, I think I want to go to the University of Auburn. I'm like, do you love sports? And they're like, I mean, I'm indifferent. I'm like, can we
Right.
please go down during football season? Like when the
Right.
whole campus, like that is the vibe. And it's interesting what some kids think they can tolerate and don't have any expectation. And then I think the third round of fit for something that's ED is, how far is it from home?
Mm,
Kids often have grandiose visions and goals of, I can't wait to spread my wings and fly, until they get hit with that first bout of flu or whatever. And mom and dad are not a quick drive or a quick flight home. I
right.
often tell kids, you know what you need to do? You need to plan that visit where we're telling you, you need to go take that tour. I want you to go on your own. I want you to get on the plane. I want you to get in the Uber. I want you to schedule the tour. I want you to do all the independent things that being that far away from home is going to require of you. And if that intimidates you, then we really need to think about whether or not this school is the right fit for you, especially if you're going to commit ED.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point. And that, I mean, that kind of brings us into our number 3 thing to think about is, are you really ready to fully commit? Because like Allison was saying in the beginning, when you have a student who applies early decision, part of that agreement is, if you are applying without any interest in receiving financial aid, then the expectation would be, if you are admitted, you will immediately pull your active applications at other universities and you will not submit any more applications. So
Mhm.
from a timing perspective, you have to understand that you'll be submitting a lot of applications, not just your early decision application,
Yeah.
likely, um, in the fall. So October, November of senior
Mhm.
year. You will hear back from that early decision school by
Yep.
mid-December.
Which is
However,
awesome.
right,
Yay!
yay, which could be great.
Early.
However, you will not hear back from most of the other schools that you've applied to until around the end of January. Some you might hear early, but a lot of them don't come out until the end of January. So what that means is,
Hmm.
your student would never receive an admissions decision, and they have to be comfortable never receiving an admissions decision from a host of other schools. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of times students will say to us, well, I just am applying because I want to see if I can get in, right? You might be
100%.
having similar conversations within your house, but they won't know, right? Because if they're
Mhm.
admitted early decision, and if you tell the university we're not interested in receiving financial aid, the expectation is you will immediately pull all of your other active applications. If you indicate that you are planning to apply for financial aid, then you do get to wait until you receive your financial aid package from that university. So if your student is admitted to their ED school, don't pull the applications, get your financial aid package, see what your cost will be, and then, assuming that you've done your homework ahead of time, this shouldn't be too
Mhm.
big of a surprise. Hopefully, the numbers kind of match up to what you expected. And then ideally, you would move forward with the student committing, and then you would still pull those applications. So at the latest possible point for an early decision one, you'd be pulling applications from other schools by early January,
Mhm.
realistically, right after that holiday break. So
Mhm.
again, you still would never receive those decisions. And that also means that you won't receive financial aid packages
Mhm.
from any of those other schools because those don't come out until after your student has been admitted to a university. So if you're wanting to just see what will happen, or if you're wanting to see what financially the options would be with all of the different universities, you are cutting that off by applying early decision one.
Mhm.
So that's really important. What
100%.
other things are there to consider, Allison, in terms of like that really being ready to fully commit?
If you have in the back of your head that, yes, you have a priority list where there's your top choice, but you're just as satisfied with your second choice, I often have a hard time telling someone to go ED because they're, even though you've ranked them, that didn't tell me that you've fallen in love with one. I mean, there is a distinct difference between an ED decision and your top choice school. And so I really hone in with those kids of an understanding of what it means to be all in versus ranking it as your number one. But I
Yeah,
think you're spot on that if you want to know and hear back, like to be able to say, I got into, fill in the blank and name your school, that's gone. And
yep,
you lose the ability to kind of feel a little pride or puffed up chest or have options.
yeah.
It's a risky gamble.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the trade-off is
Mhm.
if you love the school more than anything and you want the slight increase in chance of admission and financially it makes sense for your family and you have absolutely no interest in attending any other university over this one,
Yep.
an early decision could be a really good fit for you, right? I mean, I think that's when we get to the bottom line is there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to applying
Mhm.
early decision. It really is an individual student and family decision. And, it's something that you just really need to think seriously about because there is the expectation that your student would commit if they are admitted. And now sometimes we get the question,
Mhm.
and feel free to put your questions in the chat if you have any questions. Sometimes we get the question, what happens if my student applies early decision and is either not admitted
Mhm.
or deferred to regular decision? So if your student is not admitted, then unfortunately, that university is not going to be an option for them for
Yep.
this application cycle. So it's not a situation where they could reapply in regular decision. The university has already made their decision for this application cycle. If
Mhm.
your student is deferred, which means the university is saying, we just need a little more time, we need a little more information before we're ready to make a decision, then your student is no longer under that binding agreement. So if they're changed from early decision to regular decision, they're still being considered for admission, but now all of those binding expectations are gone.
Mhm.
And when they receive their admissions decision at the end of March, they'll be like any other student. They can decide whichever school they want to attend. There is no expectation of them attending. So
Mhm.
I think that's an important piece to note. But yeah,
Absolutely.
so three really important things to consider. So again, we have Q&A open if anyone has any early decision questions. In the meantime, I will be back in a couple of weeks on September 7th, honing in on those early health interest students. So, any students who are interested in studying something in college related to the health sciences, let's talk about three things that your student can be doing right now during high school to set
Mhm.
them up for success in their application process when applying to those programs. Awesome. So we have a couple questions. Okay, so for state schools that are more difficult to get into, so within North Carolina, think NC State University, UNC Chapel Hill. Are kids that do not fall into the typical stats of kids that get in, do they have a better chance of getting in ED? Leah, that is a great question.
Mhm.
So for our North Carolina public institutions, they do not offer an early decision round.
Mhm.
So, early decision is something we see more often at private universities, although there are some public universities that do offer early decision. Our North Carolina schools do not.
Mhm.
So, for in the case of NC State or UNC Charlotte, for example, those schools offer early action. which is not binding. Students apply by October 15th for UNC Chapel Hill or November 1st for NC State University, and then they will receive a decision in December or January. And or they can apply regular decision, which would be a January deadline, and they will hear back around the end of March. But for some private institutions in the state, those may often have a slightly higher admit rate for early decision because colleges are businesses and they are looking to make sure that they have a set number of students coming in every year to hit their enrollment goals. And with early decision, they know these students are a set thing. They're coming, right? Chances are. So that's why those rates are a little higher. And also, if any student is applying and is planning to be part of the athletic program at the university, those students typically also commit through the early decision round, which drives up the admit rate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Allison. This was really fun.
Pleasure. Thank you for
Allison
letting me
has
spend
a
my Sunday
senior.
evening with you.
Yeah, Allison has a senior who is starting tomorrow. So this is all very relevant for her as well.
I've already cried my baby tears today.
Yeah.
I was looking through the photo albums and taking me back down the sands of time that I should not have done. Like, oh, get off Facebook. Stop looking at
Oh, I
memories.
love it.
Thank
Oh,
you,
well, good
Gina.
luck
Thank
to
you for
you
letting
all
me.
tonight and tomorrow morning. I hope everybody in your household has a great first day. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And I look forward to seeing you back here in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Gina.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.